He has advised transnational companies on trade and investment policy in China and has done training courses with and for the WTO and UNITA. Dr. Sharma is the finalist for the ADR Teacher Award 2019 in Australia. Dr. Sharma is the first Indian to hold a PhD in law from China. He holds PhD from the Chinese University of Political Science and Law. Next, we have a member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He has been elected to the Southern Indian Regional Council for the term 2019-22. Presently, he is serving as the Secretary and Acting Treasurer of SIRC for the year 2022 and is heading as the Chairman of the Newsletter Committee, Research Committee, CSBF Committee of SIRC. Previously, he served the SIRC Hyderabad chapter as Chairman for the year 2017 and Treasurer of ICSI SIRC for the year 2000. And is registered as resolution professional with ICSI Insolvency Professional Agency. He has an experience over a period of 19 years and provided consultancy services as PCS on various corporate law matters, that is, Companies Act, SEBI regulations, FEMA regulations, other corporate laws, intellectual property laws, labor laws, foreign trade laws. He has appeared on various matters before NCLT and NCLAT, Registrar of Trademarks, Copyright Authorities, etc. Next, we have CA Arun Kumar Srivastava, who is a senior partner at Kumar Swarup and Company Chartered Accountants and a former independent director at Steel Authority of Srivastava strongly believes in secularism and true spirit as enshrined in the Indian Constitution. He has also served as the former independent director of NMDC Limited and member of board level subcommittee on audit committee and subcommittee for corporate social responsibility CSR. Former independent director and chairman board level subcommittee on audit, chairman import committee on import of coal and member of board level subcommittees on capital investments and strategic alliances and joint ventures of Steel Authority of India Limited, SAIL. He was also the former director of Progressive Urban Cooperative Bank Limited, life member of Lucknow Chartered Accountants Society, and a life member of Lucknow CA Tax Practitioners Association. Next, we have Dr. Alok Garg, a seasoned professional who is a member of ICI and a qualified CS from ICSI. He has a long-standing industry experience of more than 15 years and in the field of finance, having delivered more than 700 lectures on various topics of financial reporting and accounting at national and international platforms, including NIFM, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Heavy Industries, and ICISA, CAG of India. He has also been a special invite to prestigious Accounting Standard Board, ASB, of ICAI for the financial year 2019-20 and 2020-2021. He has also accorded as a subject matter expert in the field of financial reporting multiple times during his professional stint. He has been awarded with the National Education Leadership Award from Delhi University in association with Indian Accounting Association. Next, we have Mr. C.A. Dishu Gupta, who is a chartered accountant qualified in November 2009. He is a fellow member of ICI, practicing in the field of direct taxes, indirect taxes, and intellectual property rights since 2009 for various range of clients in India and abroad. He is a speaker on various platforms of ICI, ICSI, colleges, forum. He is also a host cum moderator at ICI platform on YouTube for various educational and professional programs. He was a co-opted member of is very vital for life in transformation and transition. On the list, we have Chetan Jagetia, who is the managing partner of Jeevan Jagetia and practicing He is also an elected member of managing committee elections of ICI for the tenure 2022 to 25. Mr. Jagetia is also the managing director and professional entrepreneur of Lifeline Finstock Private Limited and the founder of Truck for Load, a startup in the transport sector. Advocate Riddhi Bhanushali, my co-host, to take over.
Greetings,
Am I audible,
everyone.
Riddhi?
Shravan. Greetings, everyone. I'm Advocate Riddhi Bhanushali, the Chief Strategic Alliance Advisor of SK Associates and Group, and Shravan's co-host for the day. I would like to request all the guests and attendees to kindly switch on your respective webcams during the conference. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Rajesh Sharma, a senior lecturer at RMIT University, Australia, to commence his speech.
Thank you very much, and namaskar to everyone from here from Melbourne. This is almost like 11:40 p.m. in the night. So if I fall asleep in the middle, then please forgive me about that. But I'm very honored and privileged to be invited for this seminar, and very honored to be with the colleagues who I see here. And after hearing from Sarvan, I feel that I'm too small for them, to be here, and I'm looking forward to learn quite a lot from you, all of you. When I got the invitation from Vanilla and she contacted me for this program, I was very surprised that how come she knows about me, my earlier life, when I started my career as a tax expert in that one. And not very people know in my field and my career who are involved that I did my MPhil on intellectual property taxation way back, which I started quite early, almost like 97, 98 at that time. And I did my MPhil, and then I did the PhD on a different topic in that one. So I forgot, and the people forgot about it, that taxation. But my interest in IP taxation was very, very early on. It was there, and when I was studying law in Delhi Law School, even at that time, I decided that I will do the PhD on that. So my only regret is that I didn't do the PhD on that topic, but I did MPhil on that topic. But it was interesting that by the time in 95, I moved to Hong Kong, when Hong Kong was not even part of China and it was under transition. And my appointment was on that one to look after the financial transition of financial system of Hong Kong from Hong Kong to China, and what are the changes it will come. And at that time, even in China, Hong Kong tax system was very matured, and it was source-based tax system, very nice and very easy to handle at that time. It was a tax heaven for all of us. Low tax, high income, and the perfect 5 minutes. It takes 5 to 10 minutes to fill in the tax form, and life was so easy for us. And then it was transiting to us like 97, when the China was coming as a sovereign, but the Chinese tax system was not going to be imposed on Hong Kong. Hong Kong tax system was supposed to be different. But one very critical point was that most of the Hong Kong companies, they were not manufacturing in Hong Kong. They were manufacturing in China. So the tax system related to the IP was very interesting, that you can invest or acquire any IP or trademark or anything, and you can use it in China in a different jurisdiction, and still it is counted to us Hong Kong, and you can take all the benefits. So it was a very good opportunity for them. But interesting part was that when you look at from there, and most of the manufacturers at that time, when they started, or the business which started, it was not a big company. They now become very big company. Even Alibaba was just a website which started, not many people knew, but now it has become totally different. So we can see those kind of a development which is started. So the interesting part was that when we look at this IP taxation, the one issue was everybody was focusing directly on how to tax the income or related to that. So only the third part. But if you go and look at a little bit, and this is my research was, and also thinking was based on different practices, that we should look at for a small and medium-sized enterprises, or even for a startup which we are looking at now. We should not just think about the how to tax, what to tax, and all those things. It is very third stage of the thinking we should come. But as a policy makers and as a policy level, we should think one step or two steps before. And my suggestion is that, and my point is that, we should look at in three stages. First, knowledge part. The knowledge of IP, whether the startups or the company or the MSME or SMEs, whether they have their own understanding and knowledge, whether they have any IP rights which they have acquired or developed or something, which they don't know or they don't know. And my experience in all many countries where I can can say even the tax expert country like Hong Kong and other, if you find that most of the small and medium-sized enterprises, they do not even know which kind of IPR or IP rights they have, and they should acknowledge that, and they should have it about it. They don't know about it. And there were many cases where US investors, they came and acquired some Chinese companies or the small companies in the local areas over there. And the local Chinese companies, they didn't even have any idea about their brand. They didn't even have an idea about the know-hows. They didn't even think about that, what is the cost of that and how they should think about that to utilize it in any merger or acquisition. While the American companies, they were coming and they were only using their intellectual property right as a total investment. And that was a quite kind of like a gap over there. And therefore, from there, we found that the knowledge is a big difference, and the problem or the gap we have to think about it. Now, let's look at the figure. Only I was checking the figure of India. If you look at that, according to the Ministry of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, if you look at that, according to them, until 26th of November 2021, the total registered MSMEs is 6.3 crores. 6.3 crores. So all these companies, they have a name that's registered in the company registry, and they have a brand or the company name as such. But if you look at the total trademark registration, which you can see in 2019 and 20 itself, it is only 294,172. So only in lakhs, not even in crore. And by 2021, if you look at the total industrial registration, which has a trademark registration, which has been done in India, it is only 256,000. So it's not that. So if you look at the number of companies, a small company which we have, and the trademark registration or brand registration or the company name registration, even in that one, you will find there's a big gap. I mean, one can simply say that every company has a logo, every company has their company name. At least this should be registered, and they should be apply for that, and they should protect that one. So slowly these things will become a brand and other. So they should be acquiring, and they should be considering that it has some value, and they should keep quite an eye on that, and they should admire that, and they should really appreciate that. But that part is not having, and this is because of the lack of the knowledge. So we have to first think about that, how we can make these small companies or a startup to right from the beginning to think about that, their ideas, their brand, their thought, and their technical know-how, that how they should value it. That's the one part. So they should first know that they have it. Now, the second stage is that even if they have it, how they should value it. What should be the valuation of it? So when somebody is coming to invest or they are going to sell it out, they have to think about that, how it should be valued. And to my recollection, when in the early 2000, when I was doing, or before 2000, millennium, when I was doing the research, I found that the books on IP evaluation were not even available. Hardly we had 1 or 2 books available at that time. And this was another thing that at that time, the policymakers and the people and the experts, they started thinking about how to value IP rights. And the valuation of IP rights really created another stage. And I say that for SMEs and startups, and startups, I take it as an SMEs at this time. So if they are a startup and they are SMEs, for them, they are more focused on their ideas and thinking about it, but they don't think about their IPRs. So even if they have a knowledge, the second thing we should have is the valuation. On what basis we should value them? What should be the criteria? And I know that now the Accounting Standard Board has a criteria for evaluating or the value doing the valuation of IPR. So if they know, then it will be valued very nicely. So that is thanks to all the chartered accountants and those people who have developed now the rules, which was at that time it was not there, but now we have a rule, so at least we can use it. Then it comes to the third stage is the taxation, which the government makes the law, and then we think about that how and what it should be related to and how it should be taxed, and the government makes the rule accordingly, and they give the incentive. So my interest is not very much that what the government which kind of law it should be. The very simple thing is the government should give incentive, government should give help to them, the company to grow and all those things. So that part is easy part, which we can work it out. And that through the lobby and through the people in India, I see that every time when the budget comes, there is some relaxation has been given. And I see the investment side is quite flexible at this time, and many more things has been done. But in that regard, how to culture or how to help SMEs or startups or medium MSMEs, for that one, I can only share my experience that what I have seen in China, the way it was happened. When special economic zones were established at that time, the special economic zones or even the provincial governments, they help the small or the startup or the small businesses or the first growing businesses. Their simple formula was that don't charge any tax from them. And it was called very simply tax holidays. Of course, the local businesses, they didn't like it about the Chinese businesses, but the foreign businesses and all, they got this benefit that when you start your business, for the first 10 years, you don't have to pay any tax. And that is a tax holiday.
Sir, as we have lack of time, I would like you to I would like to thank you for your wonderful speech and request the attendees to put their queries forward if they have any. Do the attendees have any queries? You can put forward to Rajesh, sir.
So is the time finished or?
Yeah, sir, there is a time constraint.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, not a problem, not a problem. Sorry to cut you.
No problem.
I apologize for the same.
That's fine.
Yeah. So attendees, any queries, please?
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, Shravan.
So, Mr. Sharma, my question exactly was, we have the ease of doing business policy in India so that people can invest very easily and funds can be raised very easily for startups. Is there any such similar policy across in China as well as Australia?
My second part, this is what I was going to say. That China has a tax holidays, and then even after 10 years, if you do not have the 5 years of continuous profit when you make it, then you have to pay tax. And even between that 5 years, if there's any break, any 1 year you have lost, then you don't have to pay tax. And again, the 5 year will start. But that does start when they were giving the promotion. In Australia, if you are an investor in SME or in startups, then you do not have to pay tax and you get a heavy tax break on that. So there is a benefit for that, particularly if it is given for the research and development or the university related or industry related research, you get that. And the interesting part in Australia, capital gain tax is very high. So if you invest in SMEs or startups for 1 year and you invest for 1 year, then even for 10 years, if there's a sale after that, then you don't have to pay capital gain tax. So the benefit for capital gain tax for 10 years is very good on that. And that's how the government is incentivizing investors as well as their startups.
Thank you. That's actually very good. Okay. I would like to thank Dr. Rajesh Sharma for his amazing speech. And I would like to invite CS Venkatramana Rajagolu to come and commence his speech. Am I audible, Mr. Venkatramana?
I can start.
No. Awesome.
Can I start now?
Yeah.
Yeah, sir, you can start.
Very good evening, everybody. On Sunday evening, you all here to see the startup presentation.
Yeah, sir.
Not exactly, Mr. Ramana. If you could just share your screen.
Hello.
I can't see it. Riddhi, can you see the presentation?
No, I cannot see the presentation.
If you could just stop sharing your screen once and again try again. Once. Yeah.
Hello.
You're audible.
Am I audible? Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah, now it's visible. Perfect.
Okay, fine. See, just I would like to give a brief introduction about this startup, because the whole session is about the startups. Actually, as per the Indian procedure, an entity which is incorporated either in India, which is not prior to 5 years, older than 5 years, will be treated as a startup entities to make them applicable for the eligible for the government schemes. Then the annual turnover should not exceed 100 crores in the previous year, and it should be working towards the innovation, development, and deployment and commercialization activities, which is involved in the new products, either new products or processes or services driven by the technology or intellectual property. How Mr. Rajesh Sharma ji was mentioning that what is the value of IP and all. So what are the entities which can be registered as startups in India is private companies under Companies Act, and LLP under LLP Act, and partnership firms under Indian Partnership Act. Okay. First of all, to be treated as a startup, you need a certification, registration from Interministerial Board of Certifications in respect of eligible businesses. That is the first thing. So you will register as a startup entity. Then entity should formed out of splitting and reconstruction. It should not be formed out of splitting of any existing business or reconstruction of existing. It should be a fresh one, new one. Then if the startup turnover exceeds 100 crores or 5 years is completed, it will lose that startup eligibility. That is the criteria. Then what is the tax benefit? Tax benefit is startup shall be eligible for tax benefits once it abstains the registration from DIPP. Startups are like private companies, LLPs, and partnership firms. These are the just I would like to throw some basic distinction between the partnership firm and company and LLP. The distinction is partnership firm is a not separate legal entity which is separate from the promoters, partners. But a company is having a separate legal entity, and LLP is also having a separate legal entity, being a body corporate. The number of members is for partnership firm it is 2, and maximum will be 20. And for company 2 and 50, it can be extended to 200 by private placements. And partners for LLP also minimum 2, and there is no maximum limitation. Then the company will have the perpetual succession, whereas partnership firm will not have the perpetual succession. And even the LLP will have the perpetual succession. So it will not closed unless it is through the process of the law. Then foreign investment is allowed in not allowed in the partnership firm, whereas if it is a LLP partner, foreign investment is allowed, and foreign nationals can become members in companies as well. Then what is the tax liability? I will come later. On an average, it is 30%, 30% plus surcharges, whatever applicable. But in detail, I will run through in the next slides. Okay, audit of accounts, partnership firms, except tax audit, nothing is required, but company statutory audit is mandatory. Then LLPs also require having turnover has to get its accounts audited by the tax audit. Then applicability of accounting standards, no standards are applicable for partnership firm, whereas company and LLP, the standards are applicable. The partnership firms cannot merge to each other, but companies and LLPs can be merged under the law procedure, legal procedure. Then I would like, since lack of time, I would not go into the process of incorporation. But only one thing you can do, if you want a company and register the apply for the registration. Startups, the main thing is the composition of the partners and the promoters, because somebody will the valuation of intellectual property, which is that the sweat equity shares may be issued. Or for consideration other than cash for intellectual property, what they generated, that can be
Okay.
Mr. Venkatramana, audio is
Shravan,
yeah,
am I audible? Can we move further?
yeah, we can.
Okay, so I would like to thank Dr. Venkat Ramana from the Hyderabad chapter of SIRC. And now, if there are any queries from attendees, you can kindly forward the queries to sir.
Anyone? Any queries on whatever Mr. Venkatramana explained? I think we can move further. Am I audible, Riddhi?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. We call the next speaker.
Okay. Now I would like to invite C. Arun Kumar Srivastava from Lucknow chapter of NIRC of ICI to commence a speech. Am I audible?
Yes.
Sir, you are not audible.
Yeah, Mr. Srivastava, if you could just like unmute yourself. Mr. Srivastava, if you could unmute yourself, you're not audible.
Sir, you are not audible. Could you unmute yourself?
Hello.
Yeah, sir. Now you're audible.
Okay. Very good evening to everybody. I am thankful to Mr. P. Shravan Kumar, the host of this conference, and Mr. D, the co-host, and the speakers also. Mr. Rajesh and Mr. Venkatrama has given a very good speech and covered almost all the subjects. Here I will like to focus on the Startup India Action Plan. What is the plan? The main features of the plan are they are trying to provide simplification and hand-holding of the project. And the second is funding support and incentives in the shape of taxations. And the third is industry academia partnership and incubations. So these are the main features. And in simplification, they have allowed the self-certification for about 6 labor laws and 3 environmental laws in manufacturing sector where the industries fall in the white category sector. So in these cases, the startups can self-certify the compliances through the mobile app, and inspections has not been allowed for the first 3 years. So it's a great help for the startups, and it will promote the startups. And the second thing is government of India has proposed to for the incorporation of these startups through the mobile app. But this feature has not been started, I think, so far, because all the 3 forms of the startup, namely private limited companies, LLPs, and partnership firms are being incorporated first in a normal feature, because these features of the mobile integration has not been started so far, and then it is registered as a startup in the DIPP. The second thing is sorry. The second feature is the IPR. In IPR case, the government has proposed to maintain a panel of facilitators who will give the advisory to the startups. They will file the applications, they will pursue the applications, they will appear on the behalf of the startups, and moreover, the central government will pay the fees, total fees of the facilitators, and 80% of the fees of the filing of patents also. So this is a great help. And the next thing is startups are being given benefit in the public procurements also. The public procurements, they have exempted the startups, especially in manufacturing sector, from the prior turnover and prior experience criteria. But the quality and the capability of the startups will be assessed for their purpose. For MSMEs also, the government of India has reserved 20% of the procurement for the central government, state governments, and the PSUs through the MSME firms. And moreover, since the startups are very risky in nature, and there is a mortality ratio is very high, so in IBV code, the provision has been made for the early exit. A fast-track exit can be made within 90 days, so that the resources of the startups can be reallocated to a new business, and they are not stuck up. And now I'm coming to the taxation aspect, especially in the direct taxes. In direct taxes, capital gains exemption has been provided to the persons who are willing to invest in the startups, and by selling their residential properties. Residential properties includes the house also and the residential plots also. And if the person who is investing has got more than 25% of the capital in the startup, he can invest his capital gains in the equity share capital of the startup. And but the period of the investment is within the date of filing the return, due date of return provided under Section 139. And the eligible startup in which the capital gain will be invested it will, within 1 year from the date of subscription, it will invest it in the new assets. New assets means assets which are used for the purpose of the main objects, not the vehicles, not the office appliances, not is sorry. The first is on the investment in the startups. The second concession has been given to the startups in direct access is about the if the fair market value of the share premium is more than the fair market value of the shares in the startup. Normally, it is the difference from the within the fair market value as derived as per the rules, especially 11U and 11UA. Rule 11U and 11UA shall be taxed. But in this case, it has been exempted. And the third exemption is it's a kind of tax holiday. Tax holiday is provided under Section 80 IAC. And the startup has been given an option that they can avail 3 consecutive years at their choice, and they can plan it also when their profits are highest. They can choose those 3 years. So these are the broad features of the direct taxes. Since I'm not dealing with the indirect taxes, I'll not be able to throw my say about the indirect taxes part. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Request the attendees to pose any questions to Mr. Srivastava. Have some Mr. Anand Rathod, Ashutosh Ranjan, Ahmed Abdullah. Any questions? Mr. Abul Hassan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We are happy to hear, sir.
Welcome.
Shravan, I have one question. Can I ask?
Sure.
Yeah. Sir, actually, as it is told in the explanation or the definition of MSME, so the startups to called as the startup, should the firm need to be registered as MSME? Is it compulsory?
I don't think it is compulsory.
Okay, there is no compulsion in that, right?
I don't think.
Okay, and one more query from my side. When it comes to startups, can a sole trading firm be called as a startup, or it need to be an LLP or a partnership firm?
It need to be LLP, partnership, or a private limited company only.
Private limited company. Okay, so sole trading firm cannot be a
proprietorship
startup.
Cannot be a startup.
Okay. So if a proprietorship want to be converted into a startup and they have not completed the 5 years, they have to be converted into a partnership firm, or else limited liability partnership, or a proper firm.
Better form of organization is LLP or private limited company, because section 80 IAC does not give any tax holiday to the partnership firms. So it is better to go.
Okay, so better will be LLP or private company.
LLP or private limited company. Private limited company will be more suitable.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Welcome.
Riddhi, would you like to take over?
Yeah, Shravan, sure. Okay, I would like to thank Sir for his amazing speech. And now I would like to invite Dr. Alok Garg for his intellectual and amazing speech. Am I audible?
Yeah, audible. Riddhi. Just if you could just
Yeah.
put on your video, like
Yeah, sure, sure.
you may start your speech, Mr. Garg.
Shall I start?
Yeah, sir, you can start.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone, and thanks, Mr. Shravan Kumar and Ms. Riddhi Bhanushali for giving me this opportunity to speak on startups. So, although this conference is about emerging tax issues on startup, but I'm not a tax guy. Although I'm also handling taxation, and so I'm heading financial reporting, console, and other sub vertical of finance with a large listed company. But yes, as far as my 15 years of experience is concerned, so I'll throw some lights and share my thoughts on tax issues on startups and how this accounting and reporting should be structured in case of startups. So just I'll because this is a session which is with the students, and I'll make my session light, and I'll ensure that whatever I'll speak, so student will be able to understand. So the first thing is, what is startup? Because so this is the third and the last day, and in the last 3 days we are talking about startups. So just I want to understand, what is your understanding on startup, students? I would like you guys to make this session interactive. I request, please unmute your mic and please speak.
So, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you're audible. Please go ahead.
I think startup is either a LLP or private limited.
Yeah.
It is within 5 years of maturity.
Okay. So you're talking more from the characteristics of startup, because if you have to take a exemption under Section 80I AC of Companies Act, you have to be LLP or a companies under Companies Act. So to me, startup is nothing. It's an entrepreneur journey. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a startup, right? So startup works on some ideas, some concepts. So what could be the concept if you have to create a startup? So the concept to my mind is, what's the problem and how this problem has to be mitigated, right? For example, I'll take a classic example. Me and my wife both are working. So both start to office at 9 a.m. in the morning and just coming back from the office at 9 p.m. in the evening. So the question arises, who will take the grocery? The question arises, who will take the milk, right? So their startup comes into play. For example, we are using Milk Basket, we are using Frazo, we are using OTP, we are using Grofers, right? For delivery of grocery and milks and other necessities. So the first concept which comes into the mind, what is the problem and how this problem can be solved or how this problem can be mitigated. So to me, the second problem which could be arise, what's the need for the day? For example, today you have to drive from one place to another. You don't have a taxi or you don't have a car. So there, a new idea comes into play for Uber and Ola, right? So you just have to create an app. You just have to install an app, and you can just book your ride from one place to another. Like it's an air-conditioned taxi. It's a software-driven car, and just you have to pay $500 or $550 or $600, and you can travel from one place to another. It's a door-to-door, right? The third concept could be how the lifestyle can be improved, right? For example, in my COVID days, when this saloon was completely shut down, in case of a lockdown or in the COVID days, so I used to call this urban club or urban company guys, right, for the saloon services. So me and my wife is calling these guys. So these companies works on an idea how the lifestyle can be improved. For example, you must have seen the advertisement that if you have to just get your washroom cleaned, so just you have to pay 500 rupees per washroom. I'm just taking a lemon examples as far as startups are concerned. The fourth one is, how and what facilities or services can be provided either at zero cost or a minimal cost. For example, you have woke up at 9:30 in the morning and the problem arises, who will prepare the breakfast, right? So at that time, Swiggy and Zomato comes into picture. So you just have to book your, poha and your tea from Swiggy or Zomato. And there was a time when there was zero delivery cost and there was a lot of discount coupons. There's a lot of discounts were there, right? So I believe if you are talking about startup, just think from the perspective, why startup? And nowadays, startups are working on these ideas, these concepts, where these 4-5 points can be covered, right? How this startup worked. So I'll talk more from the fundamental perspective, guys. So these startup works on, for example, when I remember the old days of 2013, 14. So when this Uber come, so they are just giving a free ride coupons, right? If you have to ride from one place to another, this is a coupon and you can have a free ride. And even if you sponsor or you refer somebody, then you will get a coupon code for one free ride and he'll get a coupon code for one free ride, right? So you both will have a free ride. So what's this? So they are investing a huge amount of money in terms of advertisement and promotion. And these advertisements are not only the classical advertisement, which is in the form of, newspaper ad or hoardings. These are from the perspective of, word of mouth as well. So one person is referring to another person. So they are investing a lot of money for creating a brand value, right? They are investing a lot of money for, for making it as a brand, for making you guys addicted. Okay. And I still remember the example of Kellogg's. When Kellogg's comes into the market, so their Kellogg's, I'm talking about cornflakes, right? When they come into the Indian market, for the first 10 years, their EBITDA was negative. Earning before tax, interest and depreciation was negative. And I was talking to Kellogg's guy, and very good statement made by that guy. This is an Indian market. और इंडिया में लोगों को आलू पराठे खाने की आदत है, right? So people used to have a आलू का पराठा, right? So they have to shift, at least a decade will be there when they have to shift from aloo paratha to these cornflakes, right? And whenever they will move to these cornflakes, we will make our EBITDA and PBT and PAT positive, right? So initially they are investing a lot of money. They are creating their brand value. They are making people addicted for using those services. I'm not talking about addicted in a negative sense. I'm talking about addicted from the usability perspective, right? So once they make it as a brand, so once everybody started knowing this brand, so it will create a brand value. And then this brand value valuation comes into picture. For example, this Nykaa. So Nykaa's IPO came and their valuation was more than 1 lakh crore. So it's more than 1 lakh crore. Even if you see blue chip tangible companies, they don't have a valuation of 1 lakh crore. So I'm working in a company like Industar Limited, and we have a 55,000 crore of gross block in terms of capex. But our market value is 75,000 crore only. But this Nykaa is having a market value of more than 1 lakh crore when this IPO came. And Zomato, who is working on completely intangible model, they had a value of more than 1 lakh crore when their IPO came, right? So this is the way they are creating a brand, they are creating a value, they are creating intangibles. Yeah. So by these, their valuation come and they start getting the fundraising, right? So when they are getting fundraising, now the question arises, who will raise the fund and who will invest in these companies? Me and you will invest, or some marquee investors, some PE investors, some FIIs, some big listed companies, some blue chip group? Who will invest? Of course, these guys will invest in these companies, right? And when I talk about taxation comes after, when this accounting will be there, right? Accounting and reporting will be there. So guys, if the listed companies will invest in these companies, these startups, if the FIIs will invest, if the PE investors will invest, right? Now the question arises, they have to look at the financial statement of these startups, right? These companies, they have to see the plan for these companies. And let me tell you, in India, we are following our traditional accounting standards, right? Apart from traditional accounting standard, I'm talking more from the company's perspective. And we have seen a lot of startups like Zomato, Swiggy, Grofers, Blinkit. Grofers is Blinkit now, right? Uber, Ola, Urban Clip, which is now Urban Company, Frazo, Milk Basket, OTP, Flipkart, Nykaa, Byju's, Unacademy. And if you think what's the perspective of these startups, you will find where there is a problem, there is a solution. I believe this is the punchline where startup is working, right? So now talking about the financial statement of a startup, because if I have to invest in a startup, I have to look at the plan. I have to look at the financial statement. I have to look at the profitability, right? Because most of the startups are loss making. Most of the startup. I'm not telling every startup, right? Most of the startup, like Zerodha is not a loss making. Zerodha is into share blocking, and they are a huge profit making company. Bot, which is a New Delhi based company. Bot is again a profit making startup, which is selling its 15,000 units per day, right? They are into this earphones, like Bluetooth speakers. So now coming to the financial statement, to my mind, if you have to prepare financial statement under Indian GAAP, so these private equity investor, these listed companies, these foreign investor will not be able to understand your financial statement. Now, what is the solution? The solution is you have to prepare your financial statement under International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS. What is IFRS? IFRS are the global financials reporting standards, global standards, which provides you the international ways of accounting and international ways of reporting. And let me tell you, out of 200 legal countries in the world, more than 160 countries are using international financial reporting standards in terms of their accounting, in terms of their reporting, in terms of preparing their balance sheet, their profit and loss, their reserves, their notes to accounts, their complete financial statement. Let me tell you, India is one of the country which has started implemented IFRS in terms of Indian accounting standards since 2015. And Ministry of Corporate Affairs has given a voluntary route of adoption of these IFRS, which is applicable into India, right? So to my mind, these startups, if these are companies, these startups should prepare their financial statement into International Financial Reporting Standards, right? Which is Indian accounting standard in India. If they will prepare these financial statement into IFRS, this will be easy for the investor to read those financial statement, to understand those financial statement, and they can take an investment decision on the basis of those financial statement. And I can tell you why IFRS is more prominent in the world. So guys, I have told you that out of 200, 160 countries are using IFRS. And let me talk about that entire GDP size of the world, which is close to 95 trillion US dollar. Out of 95 trillion US dollar, more than 50 trillion US dollar is reporting into IFRS. So just you can see, just you can, you just can think of the size of the quantum of the companies, the quantum of the GDP, which is using International Financial Reporting Standard for reporting, for their accounting and for their reporting, right? If I talk about the big companies, all listed companies in India are reporting into IFRS, which is Indian accounting standard. So to my mind, and this is a takeaway from to you guys from my side, that startups should start voluntary adoption of Indian accounting standard, which is converged version of International Financial Reporting Standard, applicable to India for their accounting, for their reporting. And this will provide a easiest route for raising funds from the foreign market. This will provide the easiest route for raising funds from the Indian public companies. And I can take a classic example of Tinkerly. Tinkerly is a competitor of, I'll not say competitor, but yes, in the same line like Byju's. Tinkerly is a Rajasthan-made startup, and I know the founders very closely. These founders are my friends. So Tinkerly, so a listed company has invested in Tinkerly, right? And by the law and regulation, listed company has to implement, Ind AS has to report their financial statement into IFRS. So when I say IFRS and Ind AS, so Ind AS is converged version of IFRS applicable to India, right? So I'm using this word interchangeably from the Indian market perspective, right? So if a private equity investor has to invest more than 20%, for example, Walmart USA has invested 51% of equity in Flipkart, right? So at that point of time, Walmart require IFRS financial statement from Flipkart, right? So if one entity has invested more than 20% into another entity, so the another entity will become their associate. And when it become an associate, they have to prepare their financial statement. They have to do the accounting and reporting in the same manner, in the same fashion in which the investor is doing the accounting and reporting. So guys, I talk about startup, I talk about a lot of startup and how the startups are working, okay, and what kind of accounting and reporting is required in case of startup. And of course, you guys are well aware of Section 80 IAC of Income Tax Act, where you will get 100% tax deduction in 3 years out of 10 years, right? And you have to be get some registration done from the Ministry of India from the Ministry of Finance, and of course your turnover should be less than 100 crores for getting this deduction, and you have to eligible startup, right? So I believe a lot of speakers have talked about these provisions of 80 IAC of Income Tax Act while doing their deliberation. So I'm concluding my deliberation, and I'm just requesting you guys, if there is any question, so the house is open for the floor is open for the question, and I'm happy to take your queries in the next 2-3 minutes, or as suggested by Mr. Shravan Kumar and Ms. Riddhi Bansali. So thank you so much, guys.
Okay, attendees. So if you have any queries or question, you can surely ask Alok sir.
Ms. Kharbanda yesterday actually had a question which was more directed towards chartered accountants. If I'm audible, Ms. Kharbanda? Yeah, Sunal, am I audible?
Yeah, Shravan, you are audible. Shravan, that was hi. Good that you remember that question. That was basically a normal question. Alok, if you could just answer that, if supposingly a new startup is open and maybe not very formal, and they do not look into, they overlook into the intricacies of filing a return. Say for first year, maybe it's not malified, it's omissional. So, do we have a provision regarding like filing later on with penalty, of course, and that should not affect the startup, or for first formative years, like somebody who's starting at a very low scale, like there are food projects coming up. I'm asking for like some cake shop is opening. People have, after post COVID, they have tried to open up a lot of small startups at their homes, especially women. So what do you suggest about that, that they do not know about the intricacies of filing or the GST thing also? So later on, like if you could, that would be helpful for everybody.
Yeah, so as far as the provisions are concerned, so I'm not a direct tax expert. I'll not be able to answer your query in terms of provisions, but yes, on the later part, so I would be happy to answer. For example, if a person has to create a startup, right? For example, me, if I need to create a startup, educational startup, of course, I'll not be aware about all the nitty-gritties and complexities of laws and regulation. So in that case, of course, I have to engage some consultant who are well, who are well aware or well versed in this particular field. Because instead of approaching multiple person, instead of gathering a lot of knowledge, if you are an entrepreneur, so I still remember one of the line, or one of the statement which is made by my father. So he always say, just focus on growing your business, don't focus on stopping or just minimizing the cost. अगर आपको अपना business grow करना, you have to create consultants, you have to engage people, you have to engage consultant, and those people will work for you. You have to work for your business. So to me, you have to engage some consultant who are well versed in this kind of field, in the field of creating a startup, facilitating or helping the entrepreneur to just complying with all the provisions of startup. So to my mind, you have to engage a consultant if you are an entrepreneur. So this will ease a lot of things, right? In India, so although we are saying that ease of doing business, but to me, it is not ease of doing business, right? If you are non-compliant at one area, or if you are not able to comply with all the provisions, probably the compounding, the penalties, the harassment is much more than what you will save by gathering knowledge and doing these things at your own. So this guidance I can give with my experience. Thank you so much.
So any
Arun
other
sir, if Arun sir wants to put some light on it, so sir is also welcome.
I think we can take a condonation of delay, move a condonation of delay application to the commissioner under section 119. And if he permits with the facts of the case, then we can file it. Otherwise, we cannot file. And from this year, we can file the revised return as well as the original return only within the assessment year. Like for 2021, 22, now everything is closed and everything is time barred now. Nothing can be filed except rectification, of course.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sir, here is one more thing. If the startup is not having is a proprietor and is not having the income which is or having income which is below the taxable limit, she's not required to file any returns.
If your income is below 2,50,000,
correct,
then you are not legally obliged to file an income tax return.
And sir, as per the GST provisions also,
and you are saying that proprietor is not eligible as startup as such.
Okay.
Proprietorship is not eligible startup as such.
Right, sir.
Alex sir, I have a question for you. Actually, if a startup becomes famous, if a startup has a good name and fame in the market, so is it necessary for the startup? It is to be called as a startup, or then due to due to this brand name, they won't be called as a startup. They might be under the limit of calling startup, but can they be called as a startup if they have earned a good name and fame? The capital is also below the limit of startup. Like startup को जितना capital चाहिए उतना ही limit है. But तो भी वो startup कहलाएगा क्या?
So to my mind, startup kehlana, I don't think the benchmark is whether it is famous or it is not famous, right?
Okay.
So for a startup, or not only for a startup, for any, what is startup? It's a business, right? So when it is a business, how you will earn goodwill from the business. So goodwill is a very, very important tool for any business. So when goodwill comes into picture when you have a brand, when you have a good reputation in the market, when people trust on your quality and on your services, right? So there a goodwill comes into picture, and goodwill is nothing. It's goodwill is just a premium to the business. कि आपके business में आपने 100 रुपया लगाया, अगर आप 200 रुपया कमा रहे हो, 100 रुपया ज्यादा क्यों कमा रहे हो? Because there is a goodwill. जब Facebook ने WhatsApp को acquire किया था, I still remember the value of the WhatsApp was $0.5 billion, and Facebook has invested $20 billion in acquisition of WhatsApp. So $19.5 billion, 0.5 के लिए 19.5 जो extra दिया. So why they have paid extra? Because they have paid extra because WhatsApp has a business model. So it's a goodwill, right? So Facebook is foreseeing a different revenue model from acquisition of WhatsApp. They are foreseeing a subscriber base, right? So they have a reputation, they have a goodwill, they have a brand name. Everybody was using WhatsApp, and you can see WhatsApp has just vanished this text. आज की डेट में कोई बोलता है कि मैं आपको टेक्स्ट करूं तो कोई बोलता ही नहीं, कहता मैं आपको WhatsApp कर रहा हूं. बहुत कम लोग होते हैं कहते मुझे टेक्स्ट कर दो, राइट? मुझे नॉर्मल मैसेज कर दो. So WhatsApp is a synonym to message, like Xerox is a synonym of photocopy, right? So I don't think that getting a famous.
Can I join? I think startup kehlane ke liye it should be as per the definition of the Startup India Action Plan. The startup should meet the criteria laid down by the government.
Okay.
Only then it will be defined as a startup.
Okay.
Otherwise, we can, if it is out of limit, if it is not meeting the criteria, we can say in the market as a startup, but it will not be a startup as such.
Okay. But sir, I think having a brand is not a criteria now for a startup.
It's not a criteria. It's not a criteria. Yeah. Criteria has been laid down in the Startup India Action Plan.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Sir, one more question. Last question. Sorry to ask so many questions. Last question for you. So if a startup wants to get its trademark and its patent registered, can it do so?
It can do. Yeah. It can do. And that's why the government has made the provision for appointing facilitators out of the panel maintained by the government. And they are paying the fees of the facilitators also. Plus 80% fees of the filing the patents, not for the trademark.
Okay.
But the facilitators will be allowed to. And the cost of the facilitators, like advocates or something, it will be paid by the government.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Ma'am, on this, I would like to add something.
सर एक क्वेश्चन मैं आशुतोष, एक क्वेश्चन मेरे को पूछना था सर.
जी बताइए.
सर एक सोशल गेन फाउंडेशन, एक सोशल का मैं कंपनी चलाता हूँ बिहार में. क्या उसके तहत CSR फंडिंग और जो इसका सर FPO जो बन रहा है आजकल किसान उत्पादक संगठन का, क्या उससे मैं स्टार्टअप में शुरू कर सकता हूँ उसके इस पे रिगार्ड पे?
आई डोंट थिंक जो आप फार्मर्स प्रोड्यूसर कंपनी की बात कर रहे हैं ना आप
सर यस, जो सीएसआर फंडिंग इंक्लूडिंग टू जी फार्मर प्रोड्यूसर, जी यस सर।
फार्मर प्रोड्यूसर कंपनी में तो नॉर्मल फंक्शन कोई इनोवेटिव होते नहीं है
जी।
आई डोंट थिंक तो इट विल नॉट बी डिफाइंड एज ए स्टार्टअप।
अच्छा सर, सीएसआर फंडिंग के तहत सर मतलब हम लोग कोई मतलब छोटा मोटा इंडस्ट्रियली कुछ ये कर सकते हैं स्टार्टअप उस पे?
ये तो डिपेंड करेगा सीएसआर फंडिंग आपको जो कर रहा है वो आपकी बात
हमारे यहाँ, क्योंकि हमारे यहाँ एक थारू जनजाति है जिसपे कि मतलब एक बहुत ज्यादा उनके लिए हो सकता है जो मतलब स्मॉल लार्ज इंडस्ट्री का उस पे सर कुछ करना चाहते हैं उस पे, तो क्या बेस्ट रहेगा?
देखिए दिस विल नॉट बी कवर्ड अंडर द क्राइटेरिया ऑफ द स्टार्टअप। It is a different subject you are asking regarding the startups and what you can do out of startup funds. It will depend on the corporate which is funding you, whether they are going to approve your project or not. If they approve your project out of the CSR funds, then of course you can do it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
It will depend on the corporate who is approving your plan of action and giving funds for that.
I would like to thank all the speakers and the guests for the interaction, and I would like to request Ms. Bhanushali to quickly commence with the further sessions.
Yeah, sure. I would like to thank Sir for this amazing speech and for interacting with all the audiences. Now, I would like to invite CA Chetan Jagetia from Ahmedabad chapter of WIRC of ICAI to commence a speech.
Just one request. Can I request for drop off because I have a meeting at 8:15?
Yeah, sir, sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. And thanks, Arun sir, for your presence. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Bye.
yeah, sir.
Nice to see you.
Same here, sir.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi, Riddhi. Hi, Shravan. Am I audible?
Yeah, sir, you're audible.
Yes. So to start with, hello everyone. This is CA Chetan Jagatia here from Ahmedabad. Currently, I am a managing partner of Jeevan Jagatia Company. My father is one of the senior CA of Ahmedabad, practicing in almost all the traditional areas of income tax, GST, audits, and specialized in SME IPO consultancy and mergers and acquisition. So just to brief you, before getting into, because I want to relate this topic with what I have experienced in the past, before getting into field of practice, I had an amazing exposure when I co-founded truckforload.com back in year 2016, post completing my CA course. It was a rich experience for a fresher like me. I joined hands with one of the MBA from Entrepreneurship Development Institute of India, who co-founded truckforload.com with me. So what basically we did in truckforload.com is it was a technological platform to provide the efficiency of the truck transportation industry of load and truck providers. When we surveyed on the business, we found a lot of lag between the load provider and the truck provider. And then we decided to go with filling this gap so that the truck providers can make the best use of their assets. To an extent, our model was successful. And then we found around 220 startups working on the same model. What my point of view is from the above stories, a lot of research is required when you find the loop, when you have to find the loopholes in the ongoing system, in the ongoing business. You have to go through the thesis of study, and then you finally get an opportunity that yes, this is the loophole, and the technological aspect behind this loophole. What most of the startups are doing is, whether you take Zomato, you take Uber, or you take Flipkart, they're just done through the job of filling the gap between the service and the product provider and the end user. My viewpoint is that in the initial years of the business, the government should come up with such a scheme that where the startups are involved in research work, the tax benefits and the time of carry forward of losses should be extended. Because the initial years where the founder of the business is spending a lot on research, he should get all the benefits so that there is no financial burden on him later. So to again speak on my point is that as per income tax, we are getting a specified time limit for utilizing our business losses. So in the startup ecosystem, in the initial years when there is a lot of research to be done, lot of money to be spent, why don't government come up with some such a scheme that this initial year of losses are available to the startups for the n number of years? So if I understood and used correctly, the Indian startups can enjoy some great benefits. But if they are less than perfectly cautious, they might just tangled up in one of many complications. So government treat these startups, small enterprises on the same basis for statutory compliance and large conglomerates, which diverts the attention of the organization. A complex, unfriendly capital gain system is a big reason why Indian startups have relocated their headquarters outside India. According to a report on the direct tax administration brought out by Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce. So there was a report I was studying where I found that it was a report of 2019 around, where I found that because of this complex structures of capital gain, the Indian startups are relocating their headquarters outside India. So there is an urgent need to reform the entire gamut of capital gain tax on securities and real assets in order to simplify the tax regime. So ensuring the uniformity across asset class, improving compliances and reducing litigations. Reforms of taxation of capital gain would enable the investors to invest in various assets after considering the risk and rather than the tax consequences. So this was one of the key issues affecting investment into early stage startups, commonly referred to as angel tax, which was removed by government in year 2019. So such steps are very necessary to address the issues and this will major impediment the flow of investments into the startups. So basically, to look into the existing structure of the startups is that just a second. So what all have said, the startups enjoy the income tax benefit for 3 out of 7 successive assessment years under the Income Tax Act. The Indian government has so far extended the tax benefits to only 88 startups. Why just 88 startups are getting the tax benefits and why not others? Like I have one of my client who have applied for this tax benefit in ministry and he has filed the form for getting the tax benefits, but the benefit has not been availed and only 88 startups in India are getting this tax benefits. Why the government is not extending those tax benefits to more startups? So this hassle-free implementation, which was given by the government in 2016, till now only 88 startups are getting these benefits. So one of the issues that the startups are facing is this not getting the tax benefits despite of filing the form with the income tax authorities and approaching to the ministries. So this system should be carried on faster and so that the startups can enjoy the tax benefits. So I think most of the speakers have said about this, state about the exact like you can tell about the sections or the provisions related to the tax issues in the startups. So not focusing on each and every issues and the sections and just this was my viewpoint that we as a industry experts, we as a legal tax consultants should make the representation to the government on all these issues of the tax, of what tax implications we can provide and tax benefits we can provide to the startups. So that's it, Ritik.
I would like to thank Mr. Jeevan Jagatia for his amazing speech. Mr. Jagatia actually had a question about this. Like coming to the Income Tax Act again, we have found that whenever CAs or CS, like refer to the Income Tax Act or they go through books, like they just go through the interpreted versions and not actually to the bare acts. I know it's just a bit out of the question, like topic, but why is this so?
Interpreted version and they don't go to the bare act.
Bare acts, yeah, exactly.
I don't think this is the position. I don't think.
Yes.
First, we go through the bare acts and then we go to the interpretation part.
See the
The
interpretation.
commentary part.
Yes. The commentary and the interpretation, we have to take the viewpoint of the finance minister or the finance ministry which have issued those sections. Like on what perspective they are thinking that why this section came into force. First, we have to think on that. Right, sir?
Memoranda of changes in the attached to the Finance Act. That is very important.
That is very important. Like we have to go into deep before understanding any section that why this section was introduced. What was the need that ministry has to introduce that section?
That's true. Intention behind the
because of the intention is very important.
Intention of the government is very important.
Yes, to find out the correct interpretation.
Even to interpret it and to represent before the courts.
Shravanji, I have also found as soon as we are going through the commentaries and we are going through the explanation attached to the Finance Act, it is very, very easy to understand the act thereafter. Very easy. And to recite it also. It is very easy thereafter.
Fine. I would like to request all the attendees to address any questions to Mr. Jagetia if you have on the topic. Yeah, Mr. Amir Abdullah, Vibhuti Krishna, any questions? Vishwajit Das, Hitesh Khadri, Karina Yadav. Fine. I don't think we have any questions for now. So I'd like to thank Mr. Jagetia for his amazing request. Yeah, Mr. Khadri, you have a question?
एक सवाल था एक्चुअल में एक फर्म है जी वो ऑलरेडी चल रही है पर वो अब एचयूएफ में मर्ज होना चाह रही है तो क्या वो हो सकती है या नहीं हो सकती है और सेकंड क्वेश्चन की एक कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट है सेम उन्हीं का है वो भी उसको एचयूएफ में मर्ज करना चाह रहे हैं मतलब एचयूएफ किसी और का है वो उसमें शामिल करना चाह रहे हैं उसको तो वो पॉसिबल है या नहीं है थोड़ा सा समझ में नहीं आ रहा है
Mr. Jagetia, if you could answer this one, please.
Sorry, but I didn't understood the question exactly, Hitesh bhai. So,
एक्चुअल में क्या है एक कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट है जो सिविल सर्विसेज की तैयारी कराती है वो ऑलरेडी चल रही है पिछले 5 साल से अब उनके फ्रेंड हैंगे वो एचयूएफ बने उनके ऑलरेडी एचयूएफ है अब उस एचयूएफ में वो उसको शामिल करना चाह रहे हैं तो क्या पॉसिबल है उसका एचयूएफ में शामिल होना
नहीं उनका अभी एग्जिस्टिंग स्ट्रक्चर समझना पड़ेगा कि अभी वो जो बिजनेस कर रहे हैं तो वो कोचिंग क्लास का बिजनेस किस में कर रहे हैं लाइक प्रोप्राइटरशिप कंसर्न है प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी है लिमिटेड कंपनी है
प्रोप्राइटरशिप है
तो प्रोप्राइटर से एचयूएफ में बिजनेस मर्ज करने का कुछ नहीं होगा it would be like at the end of the financial year you close the books of proprietorship concern and from next financial year you start the business in HUF
जी और एक उन्होंने एमएसएमई के तहत बिजनेस चालू करा था उनके छोटे भाई ने वो भी उसको एचयूएफ में लाना चाह रहे तो वो पॉसिबल है या वो भी नहीं है
एमएसएमई के साथ क्या किया
एमएसएमई के तहत उन्होंने बिजनेस स्टार्ट करा था और मतलब उसको लगभग 1 साल कोविड के चक्कर में गैप हो गया उनका उसके बाद उन्होंने कंटिन्यू रखा और
बिजनेस स्टार्ट किया था मतलब पार्टनरशिप में किया था या क्या किया था
वो पार्टनरशिप में करा था एचयूएफ के साथ पर एचयूएफ का कहीं भी नाम नहीं है उसमें
तो सर आपकी वो पार्टनरशिप डीड देखनी पड़ेगी या क्या बिजनेस कर रहे हैं
वो एक्चुअल में पार्टनरशिप में सिर्फ पार्टनरशिप डीड भी नॉर्मल है एक्चुअल में दोनों फ्रेंड थे तो उन्होंने क्या करा था नॉर्मल कर दिया था पर एचयूएफ का कहीं भी नाम सुनी करा जैसे आपके नाम से और मेरे नाम से पार्टनरशिप डीड बन गई और फर्म चल रही है रेशो तय कर दिया पर पेपर्स में इंक्लूड करना रहे तो बैंक वाले थोड़ा सा इशू कर रहे हैं
नहीं आप पार्टनरशिप डेट देंगे तो बैंक वाले इशू नहीं करेंगे और ये मतलब आपको चेक करना पड़ेगा कि अभी एग्जिस्टिंग बिजनेस किस में चल रहा है वो मतलब
एक्चुअल में केस भी मेरे पास आता है मैं एडवोकेट हूं
ओके आप मुझे एक बार पर्सनली अप्रोच कीजिएगा
जी आपका नंबर मेरे को आप मैसेज कर देंगे
yes I will just message you in personal मैं कर देता हूँ
Aditya, if you could leave your credentials in the chat box.
Yeah, sure.
I would like to invite CA Rishu Gupta to commence his speech.
Sir, can I present my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Sir, my screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I would like to start with there was a pending motion in case of a trademark is applied by a startup. The government of India has given a benefit of reduction in fees by an amount of 50%, that is 4,500. In case non-startup is filing a trademark, they are making a payment of 9,000, and if a startup is making an application for trademark with the authorities, they are having a 50% reduction in the fees, and they are paying only a 4,500 amount for their trademarks. Sir, I will not be talking about Section 80Is, IAC, and Section 56 angel taxation. I would be talking about the backbone of the success of most of the startup in India is intellectual property rights. Whether to talk about, yesterday I was listening to Jaspreet Hanjalji. Today I was listening to Alokji. They were all referring to Swiggy. They were all referring to Zomato, Unacademy. The basis of what is intellectual property rights somewhere somehow. I will be taking up this topic today. So Startup India scheme is what it can be taken benefit by a private limited company, limited liability partnership, or registered partnership firm. Turnover should be less than 100 crores. 10 साल के लिए benefit ही मिलता है from the date of incorporation. Business activities toward innovation and improvement. Here comes the benefits of intellectual property right. Underlying the words the innovation and the improvement for existing products, services, processes, and must be capable of generating employment and wealth creation. Entity formed by splitting up or reconstruction of an existing business shall not be allowed as a startup. This is the basic criteria of startup scheme of Government of India. Secondly, intellectual property rights are very much mandatory for growth of the startup. As I was saying, I was listening to Jaspreet Dhandalji. She was referring to an academy, which is on the basis of teaching students online mode. They're all based on the various बहुत सारे बुक्स पे वो रिलेटेड है, बहुत सारे ऐप्स पे रिलेटेड है, जिससे कि उनका सब कुछ द बिजनेस इज गोइंग ऑन. अगर वही प्रोटेक्टेड नहीं है, द स्टेक होल्डर्स आर लुकिंग फॉर द आईपी राइट्स आर actually protected or not. They want to invest in a company, only invest in that company जिसमें कि IP rights are totally protected. The basis, the backbone of the stupendous growth which the startups are looking for. Take an example of an academy or the Swiggy. It is an app-based company and which comes under the IPR for copyrights of the apps. Now, types of intellectual properties are copyrights, just like apps, just like the novels, the industrial design, the geographical indications, patents. Alokji was referring to what is the problem and what is the solution. Here comes in preview a patent. Patent यही बताता है कि एक problem क्या थी, उसका कोई inventive solution आया, तो it needs to be registered as a patent with the government authorities. Then the trademark. Swiggy is a trademark. I will be referring to the royalties income from various intellectual property rights occurring to a business owner or the IP owner. In case of royalties, either it is a business income or either it is a business expense, use or disposable of which gives rise to income. If the utilized outside India or source is outside India of the royalties, then it is not taxable in India. If in case of a non-resident, if the income is utilized in India or the source is in India, the royalties are taxable in India as per section 9(1). Capital gain in case of transfer, imparting of any information, use of any patent, secret formula or process or a model or design. In all these cases, the amount, differential amount over the capitalization amount, the capital gain taxes needs to be paid by for the royalties. Section 32(1), the appreciation on intellectual property asset is an expenditure. Every business owner should take into consideration the business expense, it as a business expense. Acquire any know-how for the use of his business. Section 35AB defines 1/6 of the amount which has been paid for acquisition of a know-how in a lump sum consideration. 1/6 of the amount so paid can be taken as a business deduction, and balance 5 deductions can be taken in succeeding years. Expenditure on acquisition of patent and copyright. Suppose I'm making some payments for acquisition of payments and patent and the copyright. Point number 1, if we are purchasing for a lump sum consideration with an enduring benefit, the purchaser is entitled to claim the appreciation over a period of time. Second point, periodical consideration. Then it is an expenditure fully incurred for the purpose of business. In case of amalgamated and amalgamating company, amalgamated company is not entitled to any benefit of this expenditure. The amalgamated company can take the benefit. Donation for research as per section 80 deduction in respect of certain donation for scientific research. Here comes the word patent, scientific research and rural development. Any amount paid by an entity for an entity engaged in scientific research, expense deduction and weighted deduction are available. Income from copyright assignment or grant. If suppose I'm taking some income from a copyright by way of copyright fees or royalty or assignment. Lump sum, in a lump sum consideration, a deduction of 25% of the amount of such income is to be allowed. Tax on patents, section 115 BBF, concessional rate of 10% has been prescribed as per the Act, subject to 4 conditions. The patentee should be an eligible Indian taxpayer. At least 75% of the expenditure is incurred in India for the invention. No other expenditure is allowed under the tax provision if the concessional tax is availed. The total income of the patentee must include income by of royalty in respect of the patent developed and registered in India. Suppose it has to be taken in 5 years. If the option is not exercised, the option is lapsed. Goods and service tax. Every right to use, sale, transfer, assignment or licensing of any IPR is covered under the GST provision and taxed accordingly. Thank you. Shravanji, this is all from my side. It was a small presentation on taxability of various intellectual property rights under the Income Tax Act and the GST Act. Every transfer, every right to use is covered by the GST provision, whether by way of licensing or grant. Any questions from anyone?
Anyone, any questions from your side? So please, you can ask Rishu sir.
Yeah, I would like to request the attendees to address any of the questions in the chat box or unmute themselves and speak, as the rest have done. Vamshi Mahadev, Swadip Mishra, Shanta Adhikari, Sneha Singh, Subhashri. Any queries? Mr. Rishu Gupta, I had a question for you actually. Since you are like professional into IPR, especially like patents and trademarks are covered under IPR for startups.
Sir, sorry, can you
So
repeat
is
again?
are patents and trademarks covered under like IPR for startups?
Yes, sir. Matlab, when you talk about intellectual property rights, there are 8 kinds of intellectual property rights. 5 of them are known and famous are the patents, the trademarks, geographical indications, and the copyrights and designs. So it comes under, and there are special benefits available as told by Arunji for reduction in the government fees in case of start for the patent is 80% reduction in the fees is there. For trademark it is almost 50%. And sir, I would like to share the data as Rajesh ji were at the initiation, the first speaker was saying there are almost 2,56,000 trademarks registered last year. Almost 28,000 patents were granted that year, and along with the 16,000 copyrights. In the year 2013-14, there were only 4,000 patents which were approved by the government of India. Comparing 4,000 in 13-14 to 2021, 28,000 is a big number. So India has moved forward with the with this IPR regime, and it is helping every startup. So the way I see, प्रीति जी ने जैसे कहा कि हाँ जी एक ऐप है, एक बुक है, whatever through which they are teaching, it needs a copyright protection. एक आलोक जी ने कहा कि हाँ जी स्विगी है, they need to protect their name. And अरुण जी ने जैसे कहा, and अभी आलोक जी ने कहा था कि हाँ पेटेंट के एक प्रॉब्लम क्या है, एक सोल्यूशन क्या है. अगर जब वो आपको सोल्यूशन मिल जाता है, यू नीड टू प्रोटेक्ट दैट सोल्यूशन अप टू यू ओनली, सो दैट इफ अदर्स आर using that idea or using that name, then there is no benefit of working so hard for that name or for that idea. So you need to protect their name, because the investor who are investing in your company by way of big numbers, they are more concerned about whether your trademarks are have been granted to you and registered in your name, whether the patents are saved or the business ideas, the business secrets are kept secretly or not, patents, the industrial design in case of manufacturing, the copyrights in case of an academy, the Swiggy, the artistic work, since it is the backbone of it. If these are protected, the investor would like to invest money in your company. Otherwise, they may not be interested. They are not sure
Exactly
whether you are the idea, whatever you have, or the fundamentals on the basis of which you are working is yours or not, or it will go a long way or not. So the way I see, it is the basis. And जो स्टार्टअप इंडिया की जो डेफिनेशन है, जो उसमें अप्रूवल के क्राइटेरियाज हैं, उसमें देयर आर 2 वर्ड्स, इनोवेशन एंड लेट मी सी.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Shiv. For the attendees, just last thing to know, kindly fill up the form, which the link of which has been shared in the chat box, since you will be getting all your certificates from there. And interns, best of luck for your fee of selection processes. Now, I would like to thank all our speakers as well as all our attendees for patiently bearing up with us and coming to this conference and making it one of the best ones that we have ever had. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, sir. It was a nice pleasure listening to such great speakers, Arun ji, Rajesh ji, Alok ji. I find a best Sunday evening I had ever in my life.